Today I want to talk about, in my very, very personal opinion, the best and worst horror movies of the year. Because what better way to end the new year? So I do have 7 that I absolutely adored and 3 that just fell a little flat for me. There's only one that I just disliked. I do not like it at all. The other 2 just weren't really my thing. But without further ado, let's get into the first best. Oh, and these are in no particular order. Well, one of them I liked more than the others, but I will tell you. First up, we have Talk to Me. Okay, so think Ouija board seance session, but instead of a board, it is the embalmed hand of a dead man. I mean, really, what could go wrong there? A lot could go wrong there. And we watch absolute chaos just run through a friend group who keeps using this hand to see the other side. This movie was such an original concept, and I loved it. I don't think it could have been more well done if it tried. And this is one of A24's best movie that they have ever gotten their hands on. I also feel like seeing this one in theaters made it 1,000 times more fun, which is a lot of these, because you got to see others' reactions. Next up, we have the film Malum. Now, Malum is quite the opposite of an original concept because it is a direct remake from Last Shift. Same director, but this director ended up getting as much money as they needed to make the movie they wanted to in the first place, so it's Last Shift but bigger. So Malum follows a rookie cop who is chosen to work the very last shift of a pretty abandoned police station. You see the town's opening up a new station and everyone's pretty much there, even the calls are rerouted, but this police officer has to stay there for the hazmat crew to come pick up their stuff. Remember how I said the calls were rerouted? Tell me why this cop gets one of the most unnerving and chilling phone calls ever. And that creates a spiral effect of, I don't think I'm alone here, and I think I personally am more involved in this story than I originally thought. I of course recommend Malum, but I also recommend Last Shift as well. They are both incredible in their own way, and a lot of people actually liked Last Shift better. Evil Dead Rise has been on every single list that I have seen for best. I'm not saying it's not on anyone's worst, I just haven't seen it. And for good reason. This film follows 2 children finding a book that they should not have after an earthquake splits their apartment building kind of in half, right down to the bottom, and opens up something that no one knew was there. I was very skeptical of this movie. While I was excited, I was skeptical, because when you think of Evil Dead, you think of the cabin-esque seclusion type feel. And I was like, there is no way we're going to get that feeling in an apartment building, but we do. And there's a little bit of cabin sprinkled in there as well, but you definitely get that in the apartment building. This movie was fun, scary, brutal, and just chaos, and I loved it. While it's not my top movie of the year, it is way high up on that list. Let's talk about Skinamarink. Skinamarink follows 2 young siblings who wake up from a nap in a completely dark house. And I know what you're thinking, nighttime. No! There are no doors, there are no windows, there are no adults. I'm gonna be so real with you guys, this is an artsy-fartsy movie if I've ever seen one, and it is not for everyone. It is a slow burn, it's more of like, there are jump scares. I'm not saying they're not jump scares, and when I tell you one of them had me out of my seat in the theater, but this movie's more of just like an atmosphere, just gloomy, depressing feel. The whole time I was watching it, I felt like I was on the verge of a panic attack. Like, you know that feeling right before it hits? The whole movie. And you're left after it kind of confused, but once you start looking into meanings, what it could mean, what it does mean, and you rewatch it then, it's horrifying. So if you like this kind of movies, you've probably already seen it, but if you haven't, go watch it. Next up on my list is the film Consecration. So it follows a woman traveling to Scotland to see what happened to her brother, who is a priest there. He passed, but he passed in a very suspiciously weird way, and she goes there to find out the truth, but uncovers a lot more about her involvement in all of this than she could have ever imagined. I started to not really like religious horror movies. They became kind of stale for me, but I still watch this. Like, for some reason, I was like, let's go watch it. This is one of the best religious horror movies that I have seen in a very long time. It's got jump scares, a solid storyline. It's just fun. Is this the best one by any means? No. But I liked it, and it was one of my favorites of this year. I am fully aware that I am about to get grilled right now. Let me tell you the plot before I defend myself. So Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey follows the aftermath of Christopher Robin growing up and going away for college. His friends in the 100-acre woods don't really take to him leaving too well, and they take it as abandonment. So all of the love and tolerance that they have made for humans because of Christopher Robin goes right out the freaking window. And they start hunting humans. I am not calling this the best movie ever made by any means, but for what it was, I think it was very well done. I love children's stories turning into terrifying movies. It is my favorite thing, and I loved this, and I will be sat for the second one. That's right, there's already going to be a second one, and I will be there. If there's one person in that theater, it's me. Now let's talk about my absolute favorite movie from 2023. And that is, of course, When Evil Lurks. In a very small, very remote, tiny, tiny village, an evil is threatening to be born, and this evil has been growing for a long time. And this evil is said to be born from a very sick man. And when the villagers find out that this is happening in a house when they didn't know about it, they decide to take the man elsewhere. Because they believe that if he gives birth outside of the village, nothing will happen to the village, and they could not have been more wrong. They take the sick man, put him in the back of a truck, drive him outside of the village, dump him in the road, and think they've washed their hands of this mess. But little did they know they've just released an unimaginable horror upon themselves and everyone else. I love the way that possession is depicted in this movie. It's depicted as the sick man giving birth to a demonic entity. And the way possession spreads is like an illness. Like, think of the film The Sickness. It's like that. It spreads like a virus. And much like the sadness, this is forcing people to do the most heinous, violent things they can think of. The gore in this is unmatched, the jump scares are good, and the storyline is just so solid. This was the best horror film of the year, by far. But now, let's get into my least favorite. The first out of 3 is Infinity Pool. Infinity Pool starts out just being about a couple on a secluded island vacation. But when they follow a pretty lady outside of that safe zone, they are welcomed into a world of crime, of violence, insanity. It's literally chaos. Chaos. And I know what you're thinking. That sounds fantastic. And on top of that, Mia Goth is in it. So, like, it should have already been a win for me. I loved how it was going until it just went, like, too far. Like, they just pushed things too far. It got stale. I feel like they dropped the ball on what could have been such a good story, because that twist, top notch. I feel like they dropped the ball. This movie had potential, and it fell for me, which makes it one of the worst of the year, because the fact that such a good storyline fell flat, disappointment unmatched, I don't like it. This one, I know I'm about to get hate for this one, but let me defend myself after I tell you the plot. A sweet family vacationing in a cabin have their family time interrupted by someone knocking at their door and telling them it is their responsibility to save mankind. And how are they going to do that? By sacrificing someone in the house, one of the family members. It's actually based on the book, The Cabin at the End of the World. And I do know a lot of people that have read the book did not like the movie, so I'm not alone. Listen, this is a good movie. It's a solid cast, the storyline's incredible because the book's incredible, but it just fell flat for me. This definitely was more of an action thriller type movie that they marketed as super scary, so maybe that's why I didn't like it, because I was expecting like a horror movie, but I didn't like it. Last and certainly least, we have The Boogeyman. This film follows a family who is plagued by hauntings after their dad, who is a therapist that works out of their home, lets a troubled man in. For me, this movie just didn't really add anything new. I thought the original one was better, and I just feel like it didn't need to be made. I also think it relied too heavily on jump scares, and when you have to do that as a movie, you're probably not a good movie. But that's all I have to say about it, because I disliked it that much I don't even want to talk about it. But anyways, those are my 10 movies that I wanted to talk about from this year, and I cannot wait to watch the horror that is coming in 2023. 5? It's 2024, my bad.